Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalam ala Nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Amma ba'd. Ahabbatifillah, as a part of the continuum in our series about revert stories, I thought it would be useful, and I've been thinking about this for some time, to mention the story of one of our beloved Ali Compton Clark, rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatan wasi'ah. And unfortunately, he's not here to tell his own story. And I do believe that he would not mind if I shared some of what I know and perhaps some of the experiences that we shared, as his story deserves to be told. And I believe from what I've seen, because he was a beloved brother, originally from LA, from Compton, California, had been involved in gangs, the Crips to be specific. I think they call them the Rolling 60s, is the set that he was a part of. And his story, and what I will probably more appropriately title this as Reflections on Ali Clark, because as again, he's not here to tell his story, and I can only recall blips and pieces. And I know that the brother Mutabil has also mentioned some background and the experiences that he shared with Ali, because Ali was quite a beloved figure. And honestly, alhamdulillah, from the brothers of Ahlul Sunnah that I know and have been close to, he was a genuine beloved brother who respected all people, and was one of those types of individuals who others respected and loved. I don't know anyone who disliked this beautiful brother. And we ask that Allah Azza wa Jal forgives him and blesses him with Jannat al-Firdaus. I knew Ali to be a man of upright character, a man of sound intellect, a brother who had been through so much. You know, lived a life in the streets, and he had spent his time in prison. And I remember him telling me some of his war stories. And one story that I can remember is he told me once that I don't know if this kind of was something that kind of led him to Islam, because I don't believe he was a Muslim at this time, obviously. But he said once that it was sort of like the cartoon character, for those who are familiar with Bugs Bunny, that what happened to him, there was some sort of event. I don't know if it was akramakumullah, if it was, because of drugs or what have you. But basically, he was telling me about one of his near-death stories. And he said that the individuals involved, that the shotgun, they shot at him. And this was just one of those amazing stories that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala favored him and pointed him in the direction on his journey to Islam. And what he told me is that it was like the cartoon, kind of like the Bugs Bunny cartoons, that when they shoot, how it goes and it everything, especially with a shotgun, all the pellets, all the from the shells, that it peppers, and it went around like his silhouette. And he told me that that's what happened to him, and that was one of those amazing stories that happened in his life, that was one of those events that shook him to the core and led him on his journey to Islam. I don't recall if he said that he accepted Islam in prison or it was after. But I know that his journey was a steep and eventful journey. So I will just talk a little bit about what I remember and where we first met. So I first met Ali, rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatan wasi'ah, in Yemen. And I had traveled to Yemen. I had a one-way ticket. I could read and write a very little bit of Arabic, but I didn't know much. But I could because I could read Quran, and I learned in the masjid, in one of the local masajid in Seattle, Washington, or perhaps it was SeaTac, I don't recall. And anyhow, I came to Yemen. I had some directions, about where to go to Sheikh Mukbil's camp, Allah yarhamahu. And so I didn't know. I just had a blank piece of paper, and I didn't know Arabic, and I was supposed to go to a masjid, which is a famous masjid in Sana'a called Jamal Khair, called Masjid al-Khair. And it's a very famous Salafi masjid, and it's still there, Shari Taiz. And it has a lot of history, and especially for Muslims from everywhere, from the west, from the east, wherever, because it was, back in those days, was one of the main Salafi centers there in Sana'a, in the capital in Yemen. So I remember after arriving in Yemen, and the next morning I got up, I heard the adhan, I was so excited, and because a lot of the masajid there in Sana'a were Zaydiyya Shia. So what they do, one of the things, the bid'ahs that they have, is they do the adhan and they say certain words like Hayya ala khair al-amal, or something like this, come to good deeds, hasten to good deeds. They added this to the adhan. But I remember being so excited, and when I prayed Fajr and made it to the masjid, I was confused because, I'm coming from America, and, I got up really early. The first adhan was very early, and I was just so excited. But I remember, anyhow, when I went to the masjid that was close to my hotel, and just the character of Yemen, and anyhow, I met some Westerners in there. They could see, obviously, I was from the West. The clothes I was wearing maybe an azar, I think, and a Pakistani pinta pajama, which is like a top that you wear. So it's just a mismatch that you wouldn't see. The Yemenis don't dress like that, really, the way I was dressed. So I met some brothers from the UK. And anyhow, they had come across, I believe, Ali and Hassan Somali. So anyhow, I'm not sure if they pointed me in the direction to where I met within another day or two. I met Ali and Hassan Somali, one of the du'at. He's from the UK, and he's in Philadelphia. He's well known for his dawah. And they were together. So when I met them, and they told me how to get to Jamal Khair, but they were kind of hanging out in Sana'a. I don't know exactly what they were doing. Maybe Hassan was getting ready to go back to the UK. Ali was there, but I think he was probably trying to work or something. Maybe he, what have you. But we hit it off immediately. And so moving on, after some time, I think I went to Damaj for a while, then I came back. We met up again because there was a whole crew of Westerners, Americans, and Brits who lived in Sana'a and other places. So we all, would kind of knew each other, especially if they were Salafi, if they were in those circles. And even the ones that weren't Salafi, there wasn't that many in Yemen. So you would eventually meet everyone who was there somehow, one way or another at that time. And so Ali and myself, we became close. You know, mashallah, he had memorized something of the Quran. And I remember he was, you know, he was, just doing a little bit of talib al-ilm. He had done some talib al-ilm, and he was actually going to give me a dars, I think, in some classes in Nahu or something, in Arabic grammar, you know, because I was really just learning Arabic a little bit beyond the beginner's stage. You know, I mean, I could read and write, so, you know, I was doing the Medina books, maybe the first book. And I remember Ali, he was just a genuine character. So one of the things I can recall, we both, you know, had gotten married, and to, you know, women there that were probably from the same tribes and so forth. And when Ali, he came to my home, okay? And so I remember, and those old stories. So we would be in there literally for hours drinking tea, laughing like two children, you know, cackling like hens, you know, because that was the kind of guy he was. He was a really, he was just real genuine, and we could relate, you know, especially both being from the West Coast, him from LA, I'm from Seattle, but, you know, there's a West Coast flavor. And he would give me his war stories, and I would just tell him my background, and we would just really have a good time. But he was a genuine warrior. And I could tell some other things that are a little more personal that he may not want me to share. So, but he was a warrior, no doubt, you know, and we had some adventures there in Sana'a where it could have gotten out of control, but alhamdulillah, he was patient, and I tried to encourage him to be patient because I didn't want him to hurt someone. So anyhow, we had some good times together. And a story which was maybe of something of interest that happened to us, you know, and so this will be a part of our documented history. Hopefully one day I'll be able to write some of these things. Is I remember once it was a Jumu'ah and Jam al-Khair, Masjid al-Khair, because that was a Salafi masjid. At that time in Yemen, there was a lot of hostility between the groups, you know, Ikhwan al-Muslimin, you know, Jama'at al-Islah, and there was also, of course, a lot of communists, you know, Yemeni communists and socialists, very strong, and they hated Sheikh Muqbil. In fact, when I went to Aden and I stayed in the masjid there, I think the day I missed Sheikh Muqbil by one day. He had come to do dawah and he went to a masjid called Masjid Rahman, or Masjid Rahman, I think it was, in Aden, in a township in Aden, or a province or area called Mansoura. Anyway, they tried to kill him. I left the masjid the day before, I think, and the sheikh came, gave some lectures, and they killed one of his bodyguards. I think they tried to throw a grenade and it killed his bodyguard. Alhamdulillah, didn't kill the sheikh. So they tried to take his life many times. So the dawah there, especially in those days, you know, Yemen is still a place of a lot of weaponry, Kalashnikovs everywhere, and even, you know, grenades. You could buy a grenade if you wanted. You could buy probably an RPG, you know, all kind of bazookas. I've seen people with all kind of high weaponry. That was the kind of place it was. And so this particular incident, we were in Jam al-Khair, it was Yom al-Jumu'ah, and there was, you know, there was a particular place where a lot of the foreigners did, you know, so, you know, it was a Salafi masjid. I mean, you know, there, and you know, it's different. Yemen is a Muslim country, of course, and when you have a Salafi masjid like that, Jam al-Khair was very big. You know, man, you probably had about 1,000 people. Even I lived in that masjid for a while. You know, students, you could just come from wherever you were in the world, and you could literally just have a sleeping bag and pull up a place, put your baggage, store your baggage, and you could sleep in the masjid. You know, that's how it was back in those days. So probably many of us had spent some time sleeping in some of those places of the Sunnah. So can't remember if I was living in there at the time. I may or may not have been. I lived there only a short time, I think. And anyhow, where the Westerners used to congregate, and a lot of other foreigners like Somalis and Ethiopians, perhaps some Indonesians and others, was near. After Jumu'ah, we would kind of get together, and especially the Westerners, America and Britain, and maybe there might be a few Germans or a couple other people, French, scattered in there. So we would meet, and brothers would just kind of naturally congregate in front of the bathrooms, okay? And anyhow, I remember I was in the masjid. There was another brother, Abu Zainab, he was there. Ali Compton, he was there. There was another guy who went off the hook named Ameen, a white brother from America. And there was, some other brothers from the UK, Hamza and Rashad, going way back, And anyhow, subhanAllah, I was talking to a Somali brother, Talib al-Ilm, and I was asking him, hey, you need to teach me some Arabic, or, he was speaking to me in Arabic, but, help me advance my Arabic, some courses or something. And anyhow, I remember all of a sudden, boom, I heard an explosion. It was just crazy, and so it was somebody had made a bomb in like a can or something. They put a bunch of nails and things in there. And it was just such a weird event. But I remember one of the first things we heard this noise because we were in the masjid. And then there was a bunch of people outside. And so I remember running outside the doors. And the first thing I saw, Abu Zainab, for people who know Abu Zainab, he's got a long history in Yemen. You could hardly go to Yemen and you didn't know Abu Zainab, especially from America and from the West. I think he's in Saudi Arabia now. He's very ill, but he lived in Yemen for quite some time, probably 15, 20 years. And but the first thing I saw, because he's always been, probably since he was a child, paralyzed from the waist down. I see his crutches, and it reminded me like the cartoons. Again, I'm not a Bugs Bunny fan, but it was just like, when they have the bomb and everything disappears, it's just a puff of smoke, and then you see, so I was like, oh my gosh, my man, I see his crutches laying on the floor. But alhamdulillah, someone had pulled him away, and I think he got hit by some shrapnel. There might have been some blood there. And Ali also was hit, Ali Compton Clark, so this is history not many people might know. I think he had shrapnel in his neck a little bit. And Ameen was hit because they were in the hospital. They were taken to the hospital. But alhamdulillah, I don't think they ever got the shrapnel out, is what Ali told me. And, basically we carried some bodies, me, and I remember Hamza and Rashad, the two British. We were like some of the most active people because it was very strange, and I guess it was the politics and kind of the oppression going on in Yemen at the time that, a lot of the Yemenis were like hands off. Even the imam, that really kind of shocked me and kind of disappointed me. They were just sitting there like, oh, it's another day at the office like this, and we're kind of like panicking. I had that thobe forever as a memory, but it was blood soaked because I carried a few Yemenis. We put their bodies in the truck. They died later. They weren't dead on the scene, but I remember looking at a guy, and I don't remember if Ali, what exactly, but I remember going to visit him in the hospital as well, because, after that we're like, what's going on, but he was okay. He had a little bit of shrapnel, I think, in his neck, and it never got out, just a little bit. And so it blew a hole in the wall. I remember it blew a significant hole, not so big, maybe like this, in a concrete wall. And eventually 3 Yemenis died. And I remember carrying this guy thinking, wow, he's probably not going to make it, because I think it was his chest or something, and you could see metal, you could see shrapnel. And so I'm sure he was one of the ones that died, but we just loaded them in the pickup truck, and it was only me and those British brothers that were like, I was like, it was just weird. The Yemenis were just kind of standing around. It was the strangest thing, and I'll never forget that. So that's one of those stories, I guess, worth mentioning. What else? I don't mean to get away from Ali, but after that, after some time, we spent in Yemen, we both left Yemen at the same time. I didn't have much money, and he didn't have much money, But for some reason, we went to the Emirates. We were, I was debating to come to Saudi. I'd never been to Saudi Arabia. I'd never made Umrah. And I was like, I had a little bit of money. And I was like, well, I don't want to spend all my money like that. And I want to study in an Islamic university. And for some reason, someone had said you could do that in the UAE. Instead of me coming to Saudi Arabia, and it wasn't meant for me, obviously, to come and try to get in the Islamic University of Medina. Or, in Qura, obviously, Qadar Allah ma sha fa'al, that was not my destiny. So I went to the UAE, me and Ali, we both did, and we had some crazy fun stories, even in Sana'a. Here's a story. Once, I remember, because his Arabic was much better, he'd been living there, his Quran was much better. He was a genuine, beautiful, beautiful brother, Ali Compton Clark. We used to call him Nestor Douglas. And if Bilal, I'm gonna send this to my man Abu Bilal in Sweden, because we were all real close. And so we used to call Ali Nestor Douglas because his chest, Ali was all chest. He was, from those days, growing up, lifting weights, and he's coming out of prison and stuff like that. He had the big chest. So me and him, that was a long-standing joke. We did it for years, up until till his death. Every time I'd call him or he'd call me, and we'd say, oh, the birds, I saw some birds migrating to Medina. You must be in Medina now. And, so we'd always joke and start laughing. I say, yeah, because the birds are looking for their home. They're looking for that nest to land on. So anyhow, so I remember that Ali, what was my point? So this was a story from being in Sana'a, and like I said, Ali, he had, his Arabic was much further advanced than mine. And so once I remember, because we were talking about leaving Yemen. We're like, yeah, let's get out of Yemen. I can't remember why. I didn't like Yemen the first time I went to Yemen. I hated living in Sana'a for a while, and it was a lot of disappointments when you deal with some of the most ignorant people you could imagine. And this is not to take away from my brothers in Yemen, but it's just a difference between the North and the South. And then it was a lot of racism, a lot of tribalism on a different level. You run into racist incidents. I know some Brits who came there. One young Pakistani youngster who got in several fights. He was knocking out Yemenis all the time. So, there was a lot of things that were kind of disappointing and getting used to being in their country. But the corruption, because of the poverty and so forth, you would run into. So there was a lot of reasons why maybe we just wanted to get out of there, and look for something better. And instead of having the patience at that time. But anyhow, so I remember this one time, Ali and myself, we were, because we had no money. We both really ran out of money. Ali, this is one thing what we say, and this is not in a bad term for those who understand this in the American context, he was a hustler. Meaning he could make things and get things done. When he died, Allah yarhamuhu, he had 3 wives, I don't know how many kids, and he was a supporter, he was supporting his families, so he was the kind of guy, he was going to work, he was going to make it done, and he was a very positive attitude, because he had been through so much, he had seen so many amazing things, and he gave me a lot of, when I was down, I was, I don't know what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to go back to America, I'm going to this and da-da-da-da. And he, he could pick you up. He could pick you up and say, man, quit tripping. You need to do what it takes to make this work. So anyhow, we had no money and, very little money, enough for a ticket to leave the country. And we're both newly married and stuff like this. And we were going to, so we're going around looking for ways, to see if we go to a charity. And I'll never forget this. Because my Arabic was limited, so this time I was speaking. So we went to someplace, it was some sort of charitable organization, and the word Nasr, as we know in Surah Al-Nasr, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ, that this is a means for help. So I tried to use that word and conjugate it And basically what I said, Ali, he cracked up. So we went to this place, and I tried to speak to him in Arabic, and he had to clean it up after that. Because basically, instead, I was trying to say, we would like your help. But instead, I was saying, we want to become Christian, you know, because Nasr, the way I tried to conjugate it was basically I was saying that we want to become Christian or something like this. And he, you know, he had to clean it up, and then he told me, and we just cracked up as usual. That was one of our little crazy stories. Then we went to the UAE. In the UAE, again, like I said, I ran out of money very quick. And he was by my side the whole time. He was encouraging me, always positive. He didn't even have his degree. I had my bachelor's was almost finished. And he didn't have a degree, but he already found a job. You know, he was a hustler. He made it work. He was not going back to America. He was determined. He was a muhajir. He said, I'm not going back. I said, man, I don't know. I can't get, I was all stressed and a lot of drama. That's a whole nother story. But he was always there to encourage me and to to show me to man up and to put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was always encouraging to put the trust in Allah azza wa jal. So I remember he got something, and I received some help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed me. We ended up meeting a, mashallah, Uzbeki brother who was a very good brother. I think it was from Uzbekistan, or he was from Kazakhstan, I think. And he knew some wealthy Jamaat Tabligh brothers. And anyway, they helped me. They helped me stay there for a while. And then they eventually paid for me. They say, hey, you got to go. And that, you got to go back to America and restart, because, you can't just stay here. So they helped me when I was down and out. I didn't have any, ran out of money, had nothing, and was in the struggle. But Ali, he stuck it out. And so later we met up again when I came to Saudi Arabia. I think he came after, and I was in Hail, and he came, and I think came to Riyadh. And so we, we'd lost contact, I think, for a while, and maybe we had distance contact. Sometimes he would come. Then I moved, after Hail, I was in Medina, and I'm pretty sure he visited me in Medina, and he was living, I think, in Riyadh still for a long time. He lived in Riyadh, so he would come to visit me in Medina, and again, it would always be the same. We'd be in there cracking up like two chickens in there, laughing and cracking up, talking about old war stories and just crazy stuff, just having a good time. Again, a genuine, righteous, beautiful brother. And we finally, again, I moved to, after Medina, I moved to Jeddah. After moving around and stuff like this, I ended up in Jeddah. And I'm thinking that this is one of the last times that we saw each other. And he came to stay with me, stayed over the night, as usual, just good man, taking care of his stuff and handling business. We had an excellent time. I remember we broke our fast. He came, he had traveled, and he was fasting. So it must have been Ramadan or something. And then we, I remember we went to this, like Chili's or some sort of restaurant like this. It was across the border or over the border. It was a Mexican restaurant. They had it in Jeddah. So we broke our fast there. I'm sure he probably paid for it as usual. He was just that kind of guy. He'd rush to pay, he'd rush to just do good deeds. He was just like a genuine warrior from the street, had been through so much, and was a man of honor and integrity. So he stayed a night, and then he hooked up with this other brother, and probably went back to Riyadh. And so I think he was in Riyadh for a long time, and so we had been in contact. We saw each other rarely after that, but we were in contact. And so one of the last time I would have seen him, unfortunately, I went to Medina to a book fair with my family, and he was living in Medina at the time, and we were supposed to hook up. I didn't know he was having any health issues. I didn't even know. I was unaware. He was that kind of guy. He also isn't going to tell you. He's going to keep his stuff to himself, and he was the kind of guy, yatahammal, you know, he would carry that himself and carry that weight himself. And so, you know, he didn't tell me anything, and I think I heard it from another brother or something that he had some health issues, and I didn't know it was as serious. So I went, we were supposed to meet. I said, yeah, man, I'm coming. I'm gonna go to the book fair and this and this and this. Let's meet at such and such time before I go back to Jeddah. And so we're supposed to meet, and then he said, oh, I'm at the hospital. I have a, you know, he was going to register in the hospital, and he made it seem like it wasn't a big deal. And my family was like, yeah, go see him, man. Just go see him. And I said, khalas, I'll just catch him the next time. I said, you know, he said, yeah, man, don't worry about it. We'll catch up the next time. I'm just in the line, just kind of like a routine kind of thing or something like this. He was saying he was in the lobby. So I didn't know he had, I think at that point he may have had a stroke. So then when I found that out, I was just like, wow, Akhi, you know, what in the world? So we were talking, and he was still like trying to come up with business ideas. We were talking about stuff we were going to do. I said, man, yeah, maybe we could do this to make some money. Maybe we could hustle, start a business, you know, this and that and the other. And we spoke several times, and then he told me that he had, I don't know if it was a second stroke or whatever, because I didn't even know. And I was like, Akhi, what in the world? He said, man, you need to, you know, what's happening? Exercise and stuff. He said, yeah, I try to do that and stuff. But anyway, I think, you know, ultimately stress and things like this, I believe, because, you know, again, like I said, he carried a lot of weight on him, a lot of responsibility. He was a hustler, and he wasn't the kind of guy to ask for anything. And unfortunately, I never did see him again. We spoke, and then I got the news at one point. I think he was on his way to Egypt, and he might have had a heart attack on the plane or something. Allah yarhamahu, and may Allah bless him with Jannat al-Firdaus. But I just wanted to share that. I don't have too many more detailed stories, and I really wish I could have sat with him and got his story years ago. We probably talked about it, and yeah, what can you say? So I just wanted to share a few reflections about one of my beloved, one of those true blue brothers that you meet in this dunya, and you pass, and then you hope that in the next life that you'll meet, and that you'll meet in Jannat al-Firdaus. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal, the Almighty, to accept our good and forgive our evil, and bless our brother Ali Clark with Jannat al-Firdaus and forgive him of his sins, and bless all of his family and his children, wherever they may be, with khair and thabat and goodness fi dunya wal akhirah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.